Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Facebook.com/Rogue Wave Podcast and Twitch.tv/Rogue Wave Podcast. Find this podcast immediately after the live stream on all major apps, including Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, Google, Anchor, you name it. We're there. Go to roguewavepodcast.com to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Tonight, Avengers Endgame 1 year later. Star Wars drops early. And we give you our limited anime take on Ghost in the Shell, SAC_2045. I'm your host, Michael Dolce, as always joined by my co-host extraordinaire, Mr. Hassan Godwin. How are you doing, sir?
Part of the frequency.
I say limited because this is just a personal thing. You might have a more expansive anime resume than I do because, I certainly do not. So, but I watched it.
A little bit. I'm more of an OVA kind of person, so.
I don't even know what that means. OVA? OVA?
Yeah.
Are you
I think it's
this?
original version anime. Like it's original, like classic.
Your OGA?
Yeah.
So before we get into anything, I told you I DVR'd Die Hard with a Vengeance, and we had our discussion last week. And I posted because I just thought it was better. Die Hard with a Vengeance, slightly better than Die Hard. Like it's not even a fact. I mean, it's not even an argument now. It's more fun. Like right from the get-go, boom, explosions. Puts you right in. I rewatched that film like it was 1995 all over again, and I can rewatch that. Die Hard, I've seen it on cable, and I can't just sit through it all again because I feel like a lot of the buildup I don't need anymore. Die Hard with a Vengeance, I can just, for rewatchability's sake, let's categorize it that. I think it's far superior to than Die Hard.
I know that's how you feel.
Rewatchability. If Die Hard's on or Die Hard with a Vengeance is on, which one are you watching?
I'd watch either one because
I know, but like if you had to choose one, if you had to choose one right now,
it would be Die Hard. I went recently, maybe 2 years ago, when we were still in Midtown. Yeah, and it was a Wednesday, so I went to see Die Hard again, and in a movie theater. It was like a random showing, like a screening. And then I'm talking about the first Die Hard, and in Nakatomi Plaza or whatever. It was fantastic. It's like there's a weird phenomenon about going to see a movie that you already know or potentially already own, in your own house, and then going to see it in the movie theater again. And
I could see that, yeah.
But every time it's proposed to me, I'm always like, well, I already have that. I'm not going to go all the way over there. And then every time whatever happens, I get talked into it or I get kind of pushed into the situation. In that particular case, it was, well, I'm in the city and I have to, we're going to wait to record. So I might as well find something to do. And that's something I can awesomely do with, and I could sit and relax and and get wax nostalgic again. And every time I do it, it's a wonderful experience. It really is like a, kind of, and it's just there's a weird shared experience because everybody there has seen it and everybody's there for the same nostalgic reason as you are. So now everybody is kind of really respectful of your experience because they're there to have the exact same kind of experience. So that's always great. I really love that movie. I thought it held up tremendously in that, especially in that particular situation. I just think it's a well-crafted, well-done movie. I think it holds a place in the action movie pantheon for a particular reason, but because of its level of excellence.
Yeah, no, again, Die Hard.
It spawned a 1.5 billion
amazing
copycats,
movie, yes. Amazing, yes. And it's funny you mentioned that. You've actually mentioned many, many, many things here in this short minute that you just spoke that could segue into different branches. But let me start with this.
Choose carefully.
Victor Dandridge actually gave me the best reason why Die Hard is superior to Die Hard with a Vengeance. Only because it's the Michael Jordan, LeBron James debate. There is no LeBron James without Michael Jordan. And I get that.
I almost said that. I almost went there. I just thought I could make a better case than just that, than just the go for the coup de grace.
What's funny? In a theater, I would absolutely rather watch Die Hard than Die Hard with a Vengeance. But at home, I would much rather watch Die Hard with a Vengeance. Like it was just perfect. It was Monday night, and I had enough. I'd finished up all my stuff, my work. My kids were in bed. It was 9 o'clock. I try to go to bed by 11:30 because my kids are nuts and get up all throughout the night. So, but I was like,
as a quick side note,
I got time to watch this.
As a quick side note, too, so we don't get bogged down too much in this. Mm-hmm. I do have to disclose that I was a giant fan of Die Hard in 1987, I think, when it came out. 1987,
88,
no, it was 88. I believe it was 88. Yeah, 1988. It was 1988. Because I think Aliens, the Cameron Aliens was 1987. That's how long ago that movie came out. I did love that movie tremendously. I was one of those people who were like riveted by it. It's like, wow, this is really great. And I was one of the few people who thought that Die Hard with a Vengeance was rather lackluster in comparison to the original. So I'm not the right person to have a full-throated and honest debate about it, because whereas I like the movie as part of the series, and it's definitely the last really good Die Hard movie, because the next two I'm
actually a big fan of Live Free Die Hard.
We talked about it. I understand, and I'm not
putting it in the pantheon of. But
that's what I'm talking about. I don't hate Live Free or Die Hard, but I don't love it either by any stretch of the imagination. And the fifth one is, Good Day to Die Hard. No, sir. Plus, for some weird reason, I've seen about 3 different versions of A Good Day to Die Hard. It's weird. There are versions out there where circumstances or incidents and stuff like happen very differently, depending on which version you're watching. Yeah, well, we can get into that some other time. but I was never.
We're just gonna leave it alone.
Yeah, and that's probably what's gonna happen. We're probably not gonna ever mention again. I thought that Die Hard 2 was a great follow-up, but I thought that it became a parody of the first one.
Yeah.
Because I think that they were very wary of trying to top, a piece of cinematic, a piece of cinema, and I won't call it genius, but it was a cinematic phenomenon, the first one. So they knew they weren't going to top it, so they just decided to parody the lightning strikes twice aspect of it. And then when they got to the third one, they actually were trying again, okay, let's make a real movie,
Well, it's famous, actually. That script was not a Die Hard script.
I think it was Lethal Weapon.
No, maybe. You know what? That would make a lot of sense if that was the case.
I think it was a Lethal. I thought
it was an original. I thought it was an original script, and they kind of looked at it and go, "This would be an awesome Die Hard."
It's possible. I think it was being one of those movies that was being one of those scripts that was being passed around as a potential sequel for a bunch of action movie franchises. Right. Because if you recall, at the end of Lethal Weapon 3, they were getting out of the end credit scene.
Yeah.
They get out of the car and there's a building explodes, and they get back into the car. Remember, at the beginning of Lethal Weapon 3, they tried to disarm a bomb. The bomb goes off. They grab the cat. They run away. And then they get demoted to sergeant because they accidentally blew up a building. You remember, if you recall, we never go back into who planted that bomb. What the heck was that about? At the end of Lethal Weapon 3, there's an after credit scene way back before they became really famous.
Yeah.
And they're driving up to another building, and Riggs gets out of the car, and the building blows up, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to get demoted again." And that's how that ends. And that was supposed to lead into Lethal Weapon 4, where they were supposed to be chasing a mad bomber.
Okay.
Who, was Simon Says. Potentially for Simon Says.
Yeah.
So, but that is unconfirmed. So that is not me, I have a scoop. It's an exclusive.
Spread the rumors.
Here first on Rogue Wave. But I mean, look, it's a great movie. Bruce Willis and Sam Jackson are gold.
Mm-hmm.
You know, great movie. They're good. There are a couple of really good action scenes, and there's a scene in that movie that terrifies me. Like the scene where he's in the aqueduct and he just sees the water coming at him while he's in the truck. That's terrifying. Yeah. Like if you just put yourself like, there's no way. Like he gets out of that in a way that's like, there's absolutely, I'd be dead. You know, I would have just sat there.
I can't quite picture you leaping up and grabbing a ladder.
I would if I needed to get out, dude. I leave.
You're I don't. Yeah. Fight or flight. You're a nimble.
Yeah, exactly.
I would dexterity out of nowhere.
Become Boba Fett and fly out of there.
You had talked about seeing Die Hard in a theater and a communal experience, so that is a terrific segue to a bit of news that dropped this morning. AMC theaters refuse to play Universal films in the wake of Trolls World Tour. This, by the way, is part of our Rogue Rage segment. All the latest rage in the pop culture universe, and that includes, of course, movie theaters, which hopefully will be opening soon, but it looks like it's probably going to be midsummer. Christopher Nolan's film Tenet is still on the board for July 17th, so we're hoping that comes to it. But in the wake of comments made by CEO Jeff Shell, this is NBC Universal, regarding what the on-demand success of the family film means for the future, it's disappointing to us, but Jeff's comments of unilateral actions and intentions have left us with no choice. Therefore, effective immediately, AMC will no longer play any Universal movies in any of our theaters in the United States, Europe, or the Middle East. Basically, NBC Universal released Trolls World Tour, exclusively video on demand after the pandemic went down. Instead of rescheduling it, they made gobs of money, and now they said, we're going to start doing this same day going forward. We'll talk about this a little bit also when we do Spin the Racks.
Can you elaborate what was said? That
basically they're going to start doing paid on demand and theater at the same time.
Who didn't know that was going to become a new business darling? You know,
well, the question
tepidly ease themselves into trying to do this on a mainstream basis.
The question, and again, we're going to talk about this a little bit in the Spin the Rack segment too, because I think it's a perfect analogy for the comic book market as well, in terms of same day downloads and same price downloads as new releases in stores.
Right.
The question is this a new business model, or is it a not a victim, because it was a positive thing for NBC Universal. It was just a victim of circumstance where we're all stuck at home. We've got kids running around. Yeah, I'll pay you $20 to go to rent or to whatever, this Trolls World Tour, so my kid is occupied for 3 hours. I mean, it is a versus going out to the movies.
And plus, if you pay for it, man, you can watch it over and over, which is what kids tend to do, right?
What's funny? You had to buy it for like $30. It was an obscene amount of money. Like they were really price gouging the desperate parent, I think, because I remember one of my friends.
Did you have to buy it for $30 per screening?
No. You buy it for $30, but you rent it for like $20. It was like some sort of obscene rental fee. But
even if you rent it, you could watch it for 24 hours or something like that.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. But
your kid would have moved on to something else by tomorrow anyway, right?
Not necessarily. I mean, my son, we've now watched
all
the Lego movies. Yeah, but you know how you were when you were a kid too. I mean, you get obsessed about something. Yeah. So
it's still like that. So yeah.
So it's interesting to see where this goes, and we will obviously again I think we'll bring it back up again, or maybe we won't, but we'll see. It's a great analogy for.
We're not going to bring it up again.
We'll see what happens in 40
We're moving on.
We'll see.
The wave keeps it moving.
All right, this also kind of broke, which was pretty cool last night. Venom 2 teaser lets us know that there will be carnage. The coronavirus has all but completely halted the current entertainment industry. But that's not stopping fans from craving the films we were expecting to see, nor has it curtailed a thirst for trailers to new and upcoming films. With that in mind, this is from Screen Rant. One of the most anticipated comic book movies is Venom 2, and the official title was revealed as Venom Let There Be Carnage, along with the new 2021 June release date. The teaser was put out. The one that's interesting, though, is in a now deleted Instagram post, Tom Hardy posted an image of his Venom symbiote lunging towards Spider-Man, munching on him, essentially, building up to their eventual showdown. Venom director Ruben Fleischer also teased this in an interview. He said that's where it's all going to lead, and that's the exciting thing, because we changed the origin of Venom in the comics. He evolved from Spider-Man, but because of the Marvel Sony thing, we weren't able to do that. And so I think it's building towards, and will be exciting to see, is when they do actually confront each other. While we're still a few steps away from Spider-Man versus Venom or a Sinister Six movie, the concept on paper has so much promise. The main problem is most superhero movies these days is the lackluster villains, while the antagonists have a slim amount of screen time to make a strong impression. Maybe by giving Spider-Man's foes time to breathe on screen with their own solo entries, Sony could create a much more compelling clash between the heroes and villains.
Okay, that sounds good. It sounds like they're thinking about it. Like, they're really. It's not something they're gonna jump right into.
Yeah.
Like say Spider-Man 3, where it's like, we should put Venom in Spider-Man 3 while you're developing it. And Sam Raimi's like, I don't have room for another villain. He's like, Act 3 is kind of empty. Put him in there along with the Sandman. What's the worst could happen? And also jazz hands. We should have jazz hands in it.
Well, that's the whole thing too, right? Like,
we should have Tobey Maguire dancing in the middle of the film for no damn reason at all. I don't know whose choice that was. I blame that on the studio.
I can't exactly say that was a
yeah, but I mean, I like the studio is a convenient villain, so I'm going to blame that on them also. Though it's potentially not the studios. That was not the studios doing, but but the Venom thing definitely was. And,
Sam Raimi hates that character, and it shows. It's almost as if when you hate what has come before, but you end up making a movie, you end up trying to either make it something it's not, or you end up rewriting it, which is a good.
It's always potentially bad. It's always like, it always requires rethinking on your part if you're asked to do something you don't want to do, right? Because it's not that you're being asked to do something you don't want to do, because that happens all the time. The trick is you have to find a way to do it. You have to do it correctly, because it's going to be a bucket of cold water on your career and everybody else's who are involved. It's just what that is. Not to say anything negative about Sam Raimi. I have nothing negative to say about him. I think his work is was masterful on all three of the movies, though two of the movies more specifically than the third one, in my opinion. But as you say, it shows, it's very apparent in the material that he didn't like that character, and you want to not let that happen.
It's a great segue into this bit of news that dropped. I mean, you've just been segueing the entire time. I mean, it's fantastic.
That's kind of the gig. That's really the second chair, man.
Rise of Skywalker. Speaking of things of filmmakers that didn't want to do something, Rise of Skywalker hitting Disney Plus early. It's 2 months early, in fact. The final movie in the Skywalker saga will debut on Star Wars Day, which is May 4th. May the 4th be with you. Get it? Yeah, that's what Hollywood Reporter wrote. After originally being slated for later in the summer, the shift is the latest move by Disney to bolster its streaming service right when it's needed most, as potential subscribers are mostly stuck at home. So on that note, next week we will be doing Revenge of the Sixth. Revenge of the Fifth? Yeah. No, Sixth is pretty good, actually.
That's what I'm saying. It could be either Revenge of the Fifth or Revenge of the Sixth.
When I read Revenge of the Fifth,
undecided.
Like when I see Revenge of the Fifth on paper, I'm like, that's the way it's got to be. But when I actually say it out loud, Revenge of the Sixth, it's perfect. It's perfect. Yeah. Either way, it gave us some content. Because
there should be a buffering in the middle. There should be a zone in the middle where...
Yeah, but 5.5 doesn't do anything.
I'm saying there's a zone in the middle between the 4th and the 6th. There should be a grace period in the middle for both sides. And then, because I mean, May the 4th be with you is a positive aspect of the Force, right? Yeah. That's the light side. Yeah. So Revenge of the Sixth is definitely the darker aspect of the Force.
And well, I tell you, one way or the other, it's going to make it for a great show next week when we review all 3 sequels all at once as a collective whole, which should be really fun. It's going to be painful to watch.
Not for sequel fans. It's not going to be
well,
fun
who knows?
for them.
I mean, I got to be honest with you. I have not watched Last Jedi in 2 years out of spite and principle. And I'm going to watch it again. I'm going to suck it up and do it, but I'm going to do it in succession right after Force Awakens, and then I'm going to watch Rise of Skywalker right after. And I'm going to devote 9 hours. I'm not going to sleep for you, the fans, for you out there. But we're both going to do it. We're going to review all 3 at once, having rewatched all 3 in succession.
Are we both going to do it?
So that's next week. All right. Final Rogue Rage, and this was actually pretty cool. And it got me thinking for a number of things. But trending on Twitter recently, it was either on the 25th. I think it was the 26th, actually, when Avengers Endgame is actually 1 year later. But yeah, Avengers Endgame was trending. It's 1 year later. It was actually a clip that I saw on Twitter that was pretty cool. And we were kind of shooting messages off air back, earlier in the week about it. But it's 1 year later. I mean, it's amazing. I threw a question out I threw a couple different questions out to folks on social media. One, does it still hold up?
A year it makes.
Does it still hold up a year later? And I got to tell you, Infinity War to me is so far superior to Endgame. However, Endgame, there were so many scenes in Endgame that I'm like watching, and I literally watching the Cap grabbing Mjolnir and fighting Thanos with it still sent chills watching that scene.
Yeah, I take the difference between us is I take both of those as one movie. I don't tend to separate the two as in, I take them as one enigmatic, cinematic experience separated between a year, I
wanted to take it that way, but the way it was made, I can't, because essentially the first 15 minutes of the movie is the end of the other movie to me. That's the way I took it. Basically, Thor goes in and kills Thanos, and that's the end of Infinity War, and they lost. And that was it. Like that was the end of Infinity War. The movie that we saw, the Thanos they end up beating is not the Thanos that beat them, because it was a time travel movie, and it was a confusing time travel movie at that. As all time travel movies tend to be.
That's I don't know. That's a hang up that you put on it. It's not. It doesn't.
Understood.
It doesn't bother me. It doesn't. I mean, look, separately, yeah. The experience of Infinity War is it's a much more visual experience. It really is just it's a what we used to call in the industry in the old days. It's a fight book. It's a complete, very, very narrow on story. We've been building up the story for 12 movies, on the way to here. So we know what Thanos is what he's after. We know the circumstances of each one of our hero characters as we catch up with them again. And then it's just about them kind of getting caught off guard and doing the best they can while they're fractured, trying to mitigate the damages that Thanos is able to do. So that's there's not really a story. The story actually comes in during Endgame, where they're regrouping and they have to overcome a lot of their issues. It's really an essential piece, but it does have to take a lot of dramatic backpedaling, intervals in order for it has to slow it down and has to reacquaint you with the Cap and Tony Stark's animosity towards each other. It has to kind of set up the Black Widow's consternation about the entire thing and having failed and blah blah blah. It has to take you through the paces with Ant-Man so that we could get this MacGuffin device together in order for us to be able to get everything back. It really has a lot more restraint on it than Infinity War had, which is why Infinity War is much more of a straightforward roller coaster, with a very even through line. Yeah. But the through line is very depressing. I mean, the through line of Infinity War is we're not ready for this and we're losing.
Right.
We're going to lose every battle, you know? And with very few victories, including, spoiler alert, the end, which is a tremendous defeat, right?
Right.
And
should have gone for the
Endgame, Endgame's got a lot of heavy lifting to do. And I do agree with you. It does some of it, in my opinion, a little clumsily. There's a lot of clumsy, and or a lot of winks and nods, towards, okay, look, just go with this.
Yeah.
We pulled.
Well, it's funny
pulled
too,
off Infinity War.
I found an article. Yeah, I found an article where the screenwriter was asked, because they recently did a live stream of, I think it was the screenwriter rewatching it, and someone on Twitter asked her, like, so did the original Avengers survive just basically because we wanted to end their story? And he was like, yeah, kind of. He's like, look, yeah, it was a story thing. Now, I mean, the good news is obviously the whole concept of the snap is it could be random. So it's not like the screenwriter has to give an explanation.
Isn't that the conceit of most of our hero stuff, though, that the hero is exempt from certain circumstances or whatever because we have to follow the hero all the way through to the end of the story?
Right. Well, I mean, that's Last Jedi in a nutshell, right? At the end.
Well, I mean, in general, that's storytelling conceit 101. That this hero, for some reason, sometimes explained, sometimes unexplained, is kind of. They call it now, I don't like the meta term for it of plot armor because you could just apply it to anything. Oh, he should have died. There's an implication of story kind of entitlement on the behalf of the audience.
There's story laziness on the part of the writer when the plot armor is so apparent. No, when it's so apparent, when the hero doesn't do something. So take the Die Hard example right?
But see, my point is if the hero doing something or not doing something that you think is obvious is the conceit. That's my point. It's not necessarily obvious.
It's not.
Certain things should happen.
Not all the time. But I think in some cases it can be.
I think it's a destructive. In my opinion, it's a destructive term towards creativity. Because if you have terms to break the veneer, which a lot of these terms are, a lot of these things are invented. They're vlogger language. They're invented language so that everybody could become a critique. And the importance of criticism is to be as critical as possible as far as these people go, without a lot of understanding about storytelling or filmography or a lot of that other stuff. So the terms are invented like plot armor that are cute. It's just the same as a retcon. It's comic book language.
Yeah.
And it starts to get misused, Luke Skywalker has plot armor.
Let me take your Die Hard with a Vengeance example, which is actually another perfect. Just again, all over the place. You're segueing. You're dropping bombs in earlier segments. It's amazing. They made it a point. The director
condescension is a wave, also apparently. Go ahead, please.
The director of Die Hard with a Vengeance made it a point in that scene, in the aqueduct, to show you the ladder as it goes. So you already are you don't realize it. You don't realize what that's going to mean. But and he shows, obviously, when the truck barrels over the gap in the aqueduct and knocks the plank down, that these are all things that are set up so that the hero has to live. You can't have Bruce Willis get killed in an aqueduct. So there is plot armor, but there was things set up. There were consequences set up where you logically go, oh man, it's a good thing that happened, but I'm not sitting there going like, well, obviously that happened because he's got plot armor. Versus Last Jedi, when you have Finn whose ship literally crashes like right in front of the bad guys, and he basically when you're sitting there going like, well, why don't you just shoot him? Just shoot him. He's like he's right there. He's a sitting duck. Him and Rose, sitting duck, and they managed to get out, and it's like. There was nothing Finn and Rose did. There was nothing set up in that scene to where the director, to where the audience members, because I'm not the only one. I mean, other people had the same questions. They're like, yeah, there's no reason why that person should have lived. And there's a lot of movies that do that, where you sit there and go, I'm not being set up correctly to understand why they got away versus I am, I'm fully
the danger
understanding
of that, though, is that there are occurrences just about every movie or whatever where your hero is still alive without actually showing why the hero survived. It happens almost all. It happened in The Last Jedi with Poe. Why did he survive that terrible bombing attack? It was pretty devastating towards just about everybody else, and they didn't necessarily show him evade danger every time.
I'm very excited to rewatch this movie too. I agree, but I think Last Jedi is a good example of where plot armor became so apparent. Some horror movies are like this too.
Yeah, I just think it's dangerous. I think creatively it's dangerous because it is something that can be applied to anything that the audience doesn't automatically understand.
Yeah.
And instead of allowing them to take the time to try to understand how such and such could have happened, or to allow for the conceit that it does happen, because some stories do have to take liberties with you in order to make the impossible seem as real as possible, right? Whenever you don't have that, whenever someone just has something they don't want to do the work on, they could slap the label on it, and then I think
there's a level of equity that can be built up, a level of foreshadowing that can be built up, a level of logic that can be built up. Even sometimes the case of, boy, we just happened to survive, because war is like that. If you look at any, real
That's
war.
What I'm talking about. That's what I mean.
But again, there's the chaos of the war itself. The setup is the war is chaos and random, and anything can happen. Versus, obvious scenarios where you're just sitting there going, boy, where
you've decided as an audience member
but also
that
this villain
person should have died.
Let me go back to the Last Jedi argument, though. Now what you're doing by being lazy about it is you're actually devaluing the threat of the bad guy. Why are we
right? I understand
Kylo Ren now all of a sudden.
Kylo
Ren now is the most incompetent guy on the planet, whereas a few scenes earlier he's someone to be feared. Well, now I'm not going to fear him. I'm not going to fear for my heroes.
You, as an audience member, are devaluing your experience also by coming up with a foil every time something happens that you don't think should or shouldn't have happened. There's a certain level of compliance on the audience's part to go along with the narrative that's being told to you, so that you can experience the peril aspect of, this is what's going to happen. I don't have control over what's going to happen. And that's part of the visceral experience of viewership. And once you start coming up with language that curtails your peril, because things should happen the way you believe they should happen, if they don't, that's plot armor, or that's something,
I think it falls on the creator
your experience
to execute it. I think it falls on the creator to execute it so that.
But it's all subjective. Like,
of course,
you cannot possibly execute it.
You hate the metrics.
You
hate the metrics idea. You hate the metrics of,
because
this many people feel this way, or this many people for this way.
Aren't you a creator?
But there are definitely.
Don't you understand?
Look,
so then you understand.
I'm saying if 99 people come up to me and say, I had this experience, which is the experience I intended, and one person comes back to me and says, yeah, I had this experience, I go, well, it's subjective, I can't help it. If 50% of the people come up to me, 50 out of 100 come up to me and go, I had this experience, and the other 50 go, I had this experience, that's my fault as a creator.
Yeah, but then you're getting into the preponderance argument, and that argument is unquantifiable. It's unquantifiable. That's the bottom line. We have metrics. If
someone critiques your work, critiques your work,
every critique is viable. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not talking about it being a critique. I'm talking about it being a ready-made critique.
Yeah.
I'm talking about it being a metric that you could not possibly account for in your story.
Yeah.
Because there are inexplicable moments where a hero survives a harrowing experience simply because he's your hero and you're seeing it through that person's eyes. He's your device. He's your mechanism to be able to bring the experience.
I think that's when it's executed correctly. I think when you are immersed in it and you're not pulled out of the scene, then it's.
But who's to say who's going? I'm saying allowing a language like that, allowing that language.
You just hate making definitive stances on subjective material.
Because I'm saying there's such a thing as ever diminishing returns. That means that allowing for that language to seep into your storytelling language, right? You're going to constantly be making accounts for something that's unaccountable, right? Because the audience is going to keep turning the dial on expectation on you until you cannot compensate for it. And that's the problem. There is a compliance with the audience. There's a mutual agreement. We're going to entertain you. You're gonna be open to being entertained. Now, there is a right or wrong way to do it. There's good or bad aspects.
There's a good or bad. I don't think right or wrong is the best way to put it. But yes, there's a good way and a bad way.
That's you see, you get caught up in the language a lot. Then that's the thing.
Yeah, you're the one that was arguing the plot armor that you don't like language being applied to something.
I'm not talking about I'm saying that the introduction of foil language.
Yeah.
In and of itself is ultimately bad for the visceral experience of the audience. When the audience is constantly given mechanisms that allow them to believe that they're always ahead of their story, consciously or unconsciously, they're deconstructing the story as they watch it instead of allowing the experience to happen and then have them decide how they feel about it after the fact.
I think in many cases, though, if it's not done well, you can't help but have a more meta experience in a film. And that's, I mean, again, I'm using Last Jedi because that's one of the biggest arguments I had against that film was that I kept being pulled out because of the things that were illogical happening.
But you're arguing a completely different thing, and you're saying that they're the same thing. And I'm not. Of course, bad writing is bad writing. Of course, executing something incorrectly is bad for your storytelling. I'm talking about for the experience of the audience, for them to understand this language and to be looking for these particular hints instead of knowing instinctively whether the story works for them or not, is diminishing their experience of it. You go in with a pre-established language of things that you are supposed to watch out for. Then how do you explain how Luke survived anything? It's all plot armor. If he's getting, if more experienced rebel pilots are getting shot out of the sky all around him, and every time Lord Vader shoots at him, he hits a droid and doesn't hit him for no discernible reason, then it's plot armor. Now you can say, "Oh, he used the Force," but he don't freaking use the Force.
But
the guy shooting at him is also using the Force.
But you know what, though? There was enough built up around that film to where you're not being pulled out at that moment. You're watching something.
This is what I'm saying. But if you watch it meta, if you continue to watch it with a meta lens, you don't make allowances for that. You don't make allowances for all the information that's been given to you.
I disagree. Let's shift back to Avengers Endgame for a second. What was my favorite scene was when Cap has wields Mjolnir and saves Thor. I thought it's like I said, still gives me chills. 1 year later, what's the scene that sticks out the most in your head?
I don't know. When everybody comes back.
Oh, coming through the portals and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he walks through and he yells the Avengers assemble, like that kind of thing. Yeah, like that whole battle. You could take that whole battle scene.
This is what I'm saying. We don't even have a moment like that in Infinity War. So if you're talking about like a better movie, as a more definitive movie,
I disagree though. You have the scene where Thor comes back, and I feel like that's one of those. He has Stormbreaker and everything. Was it Stormbreaker was in that one, or was it? Yeah, it was Infinity War, and they all kind of get the battle in Wakanda. I thought that was like that. That was similar.
Anyway, you don't have that experience in Infinity War because ultimately it's a downer. Everything kind of ends with a down note. So you have uplifting segments, but you don't have the scene where everybody comes back, as well as the scene with Mjolnir. Oh, I can't ever pronounce that, and I won't. I refuse to try. I don't care. I really don't care. I don't care. Yeah. Okay.
Meow. Dave the Bearded Menace on
Every
Instagram.
Conversation gets destroyed.
You can follow me on Instagram at Sire Studios.
Lack of humor.
We'll have a Rogue Wave. We'll have a Rogue Wave Instagram soon, I'm sure. But for now, it's at Sire Studios.
Yeah,
Peggy and Cap dancing at the end. He finally got the dance he's been waiting for. That was his favorite scene. 1 year later, that's pretty good.
Who cares? People.
No, well, that's the problem. That whole time travel thing, man. That whole time travel thing was. It's so messy. It's just so messy, and to me, it that's the problem with Endgame. Infinity War is just so clean.
I mean, if you didn't have
clean.
Infinity War, the experience of if you didn't have Endgame, the experience of Infinity War would be truncated. What makes Infinity War so substantial is that you do have the follow through to Endgame. The two of them would not be able to exist on their own because they are diminished experiences by themselves.
Yeah.
They're open-ended by themselves. If you end with Infinity War, you're like, what the hell happens next? Like, and you're only left with an empty feeling of loss without the kind of payoff, without the end title.
Yeah, and that's the problem with Endgame.
And if you watch Endgame all by itself without Infinity War, you're just kind of coming into it with an open
that's my
beginning
issue
without events that you have not been able to see prior.
Endgame gives me great payoffs without actually giving me the payoff to Infinity War. There is no payoff to the Infinity War because they don't beat the Thanos that beats them. They beat a Thanos who has not excelled to a specific.
They did beat the Thanos that beat them. They killed him.
Yes. Sorry, they do, but he already won. Like there was no. Like
of course he already won. But see, that's the thing. This is the argument we had before. You have to pay a price. Why are we seeing this? You built this up for 21 movies, and then they get to the point and they lose, which is the first time the Avengers have lost, which is a big deal. And if you turn around and just say, "Oh, okay, we go right back and make sure that didn't happen," you diminish the entire, the entire significance of the experience in and of itself. The characters have to go through this. Plus, we're going to lose a bunch of these characters. One of them's going to die. The other one's going to leave. Everybody else is going to have to follow. So there has to be a price that is paid for, if you're looking just at Tony Stark, isn't that the thing that Tony Stark has feared all this time has come to pass? He's been afraid of it for movies and movies and movies, which explains his behavior. If you just erase it and has him be able to fix it, then you'll watch those other movies again and go, well, why was he even worried? All he had to do is just press a button and it'll go right back. And whatever mistakes he made, he could just fix it. Yeah. He doesn't have to live with the mistakes that he's made. None of them have to live with it. And that's the point. They have to experience it.
Todd Wright commented, still holds up. Post-snap reality is kind of too close to pandemic reality for me right now. A lot of people said that too about Endgame now. That's, I think it's funny with this.
Endgame is like, you're getting the world back.
I don't think anyone really noticed this, but the government a couple of days ago just confirmed UFOs really exist. they actually confirmed it. So somebody had like.
But who didn't know that?
No, I know, but the government has always denied it, and now they're like, these videos are real, and these are unidentified flying objects. But someone on Twitter posted like March pandemic, April UFOs exist, May Thanos is coming. It's like it is almost cut it too apropos.
And we don't have the Avengers.
Chime in. 1 year later, does it still hold up?
See, once we get snapped, see how you feel about Infinity War after that. you're like, hey, I could use an Endgame over here, and
I've got plot armor. I'm the hero of my story. Comment in the feeds. I know we got a whole bunch of people commenting right now. We will answer you in the comment feed. But coming up next, it is our feeble attempt to review anime Ghost in the Shell 2045 or SAC _ 2045. Too many words already. See, already I'm turned off. When we come back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, doing this every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, and then live on all major podcasting sites immediately after. Go to roguewavepodcast.com to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts. Go follow us on Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, you name it. We're out there. We're bringing you the pop culture you love to talk about, and diving deep into the rogues behind it. All right, this segment is our Rogue Review segment, and I've been hinting at it, and forget even hinting. I have no subtlety right now. I am not a big anime person, not because I don't like it. I actually do enjoy watching it or reading manga when I do, but it's not what really draws me in. That being said, we had Ghost in the Shell SAC_2045. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. I'm probably not. That just dropped on Netflix, so we thought we would give our take on it. For starters, so the anime I do love, and I don't even know if Voltron counts. Does Voltron count as anime?
Yes.
It does, one? Right? Okay. That would be the only thing.
Which one? Is it the original Voltron?
No, like the original. Yeah, the original 1985.
Yeah, that's definitely anime.
Who died? Was it Lance?
That's OVA, by the way.
Oh, good.
It was Sven. Sven died.
It was Sven died, right. Sven died. Mm-hmm. That actually had a huge impact on me when I was like 5 years old, watching Voltron, because I was like, it was the
and
first
actually
time.
He got sick and he went away in the American version.
Is that what happened? I thought he
got wounded and went back to Earth. In the Japanese version, he died.
Yeah, then I must have watched the Japanese version. I have no idea, because I remember distinctly him dying and
then they replaced him with the princess.
With the princess, and I was completely like, I don't understand. Like,
and for some reason, she wore pink, even though she was in the Blue Lion.
Yes. Well, because you wouldn't know she was a girl.
Weird 80s
you wouldn't know she was a girl.
Stuff.
Gotta be pink.
Clearly.
You gotta sell those toys.
Why didn't the lion turn pink?
You gotta sell those toys.
Why was Fenn in black? Keith was in red. Like it was like the whole thing is like, and Lance was in blue, even though he was in the Red Lion. Yeah. Pidge was in green. He got green.
No, Keith,
he was in the Green Lion.
Keith was the red, wasn't he?
Keith was in red. Sven was in black. Lance was in blue.
You're right. And Keith was like the black.
Hunk and Pidge were in yellow. Hunk and Pidge were in their perspective.
They were actually in the
green.
correct colors. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Everybody else was mismatched.
You're right. I actually have. I didn't mean.
And in the Netflix show, they got the colors right. They corrected.
Right. I have the original lead paint based Voltron that they had to recall. And my dad and I, at this point, it was like 10 years later, and we're like, "Look, if we didn't get lead poisoning now,
if you're gonna die, you're already dead, dude." So, so let's just. We won't get our money back from this anyway. Yeah. You're already dead. Let's just keep it.
But anyway, so talking about OVA, I love your.
Is it OVA or OAV? I'm dyslexic, so I'm always bad with it.
Dude,
it's original anime version or original
OAV,
original video anime. So it's one of the two.
All right. Well, either one. I love your terminology for it, because, quite frankly, that's the thing that was so jarring to me when I was watching this new Ghost in the Shell. I thought I was watching Archer for a second because of the way the animation was on 2045.
Yeah, the 3-dimensional animation it's hit or miss, man, these days. I liked the way it was. I liked it. It still has a very Japanese swagger to it. Mm-hmm. That American products have very different bravado. Like Japanese bravado and American bravado are very different. Japanese bravado is almost casual. American bravado, like the whole chase in the beginning,
right?
There was a concerted effort to make it look like a casual affair to the main characters, no matter how visceral the chase was and how dangerous it was. And in an American version, and there's no better or worse in my opinion. There's greatness in both approaches. In an American version, it would have been very conspicuous the danger that these people were in. They still might have had a casual manner to them, but the entire posture of all the characters wouldn't have pulled off the casualness that the Japanese characters have. Yeah. And plus, they're kind of snide through the entire chase. And then at the end of it also, to be fair, in an American version, that chase would have had a consequence.
Sure.
In the Japanese version, it was just a spectacle. Because there was really no consequence to it.
That to me was actually refreshing. Where I don't know. It's noticeably different. Yeah, it's noticeably different than what we're used to experiencing.
It depends on what your perspective is on it, you know?
Talking about the animation, though, it's funny, too, because, my son is just knee-deep in all these cartoons, and that's what it is. It's always like 3D cartoons, and I actually miss drawing. Like, even reading comics today, sometimes I feel like comics today that we read in print are made to be looked on a screen, because that's how these things are actually being done now, is all digitally, and not done now. It's been done now for a long time, but it's something about, there's something about reading.
There's also a very consumable aspect of it, like they're chewables. Yeah. Like you eat this and then move on to the next page, and move on to the next, move on to the next experience.
Yeah,
they're very disposable. Like I
miss the visceral. Today. I miss the visceral line work that we used to get. That's part of the fun of watching the older anime. Is the speeding, seizure lines.
The speeding lines. This is what I'm saying. This is kind of what I was saying before, and it has a different aspect to it. But there is those speed lines, for instance, is a conceit. It's that is not scenery that is blurring.
Right.
That was a shortcut, a shorthand of the artist to convey motion. Correct. Or action. When in the anime, when they open a door, when the room is dark and they open a door and there's this blinding ethereal light coming through the door, what that is. That is just that is an artist.
It evokes
exaggeration of reality that evokes the moment.
Or it sums it up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is what I'm talking about. That we have become so critical that we're not allowing for conceit. For the look, this is tongue in cheek. Like speed lines. This is a ridiculous statement. Speed lines are in danger, because I'm serious. It's dumb as heck, but I'm dead serious. Speed lines, stuff like that is in danger because the tongue-in-cheek aspect that we have with from creator to consumer is starting to be blurred so much towards the expectation.
Line? Is there a speed line between consumer and creator?
Towards the expectation of the consumer that everything make perfect sense, and that they are not being toyed with.
There is a sense,
various shortcuts or conceits
when executed properly. To things that don't make perfect sense.
But you're supposed to understand what you're seeing. There's a leap that you have to make to understand what you're seeing is an aspect.
I still think when it's done right, and executed right, even stuff that doesn't make sense, if it's done correctly, there is a sense that can be applied to it.
You cannot teach a class on done right, though. That's the problem. You cannot say, well, as long as you do this right, you can get away with this.
Isn't that what makes art
Because the next question is going to be, how is it going to be done right?
That's inspiration.
And then
I'm telling you, that's
what I keep trying to tell you is they're chipping away at the possibilities of being done right. Because when it goes away, when they chip away at it, when they come up with language that foils every trick that you have. Then you're not going to have any tricks anymore. All of it are tricks. All of it is misdirection. All of it. All storytelling is lies and misdirection.
Yeah.
When you're constantly coming up with foils for the misdirection, then you're taking yourself out of the ability to have the experience. Yeah. Because part of it's an interactive experience. You are trying to entertain, but the other side of it is a willingness to be entertained. And if they invent a lexicon that allows you to dissect the entertainment as it's being fed to you, then they're going to destroy their experience as well as your ability to give them the experience. That's what I'm talking about.
Now, you were a fan of the original Ghost in the Shell 1995 movie, correct?
No.
Oh, you didn't like it? Or you just didn't see it?
I've never seen it.
Oh, you've never seen it. That's right. Okay, that's right. That's right. We were going to try to get it in, but it's, we got pandemic.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to. But I am friends with a lot of people who believe it is the OG, it's the GOAT of original anime, right? which is GOAT is greatest of all time for the uninitiated. Although I don't know if anyone didn't know that.
Yes,
but
GOAT, we have segments coming up that we're gonna Go ahead.
And I did not get their take on this particular iteration of Ghost in the Shell. I got their take on the Scarlett Johansson iteration, and oh my god! Okay, so this is a very beloved property, a very beloved franchise, and the intricacy is incredible. As to the intricacy of their love for it is very incredible. So there are two possibilities that's going to happen with this. It's going to be as despised as the Scarlett Johansson version, which, there is going to be an aspect of that. There's an aspect of that no matter what you do. I do think that there's a possibility that there's going to be some leeway given to it, as it is an attempt to retell the story with a more faithful light. And since it is not such blatant the issues that people had with the Scarlett Johansson movie of 2017, was it?
Yeah, it was 2017. Yeah.
Okay. The issues that they had with the cultural issues and stuff like that will not be present. Yeah. Because it is a Japanese product, and a number of other things. So I'm sure it will be viewed as inferior to the 1995 original anime, but it might be given a lot more faith and a lot more appreciation, certainly than.
Well, it's funny, because I stumbled across this article.
The 2017 version was given.
I stumbled across this article, Tokyo5.com, and this was written last year, ranking the Ghost in the Shell movies and TV shows worst to best. Look, this is the case, I think, with everything, though, right? So this top 8 list has the 2017 movie last. And it has the Ghost in the Shell movie from '95 as first. But then if you really look through the chronology, everything that came after that, 1 through 8 in ascending order, is the worst, the worst, the worst. Like, they basically, like, the Ghost in the Shell, the new movie, is ranked 6th on the list. The TV series Alternative Architecture is ranked 7th. That's 2014. Arise, 2013, is ranked 5th. Solid State Society, 2006, 4. Standalone Complex, 3, and that was in 2002 to 2004. 2004, Ghost in the Shell 2, and then finally Ghost in the Shell 1. So I guess, it's almost like ranking, bands. Most people, any new material a band comes out with very rarely, reaches the top of someone's list. Maybe Green Day being the exception, where American Idiot might be more beloved than Dookie in the pantheon of their records. But most of the time, if you're ranking bands or you're ranking anything, it's the original, something about the original, the first experience. And it's true because, and look, to even touch upon your point, when someone, is hit with something for the first time and doesn't know what to expect versus when there are actually expectations involved, does alter the way people perceive it. So we'll see how this thing goes. I mean, overall, I actually kind of enjoyed the series. I think for someone who is not an anime expert in any way, shape, or form, or a Ghost in the Shell expert in any way, shape, or form, I thought it was actually pretty cool. I like that it moved fast. The pacing was fast. As much as I miss the speed lines and the OVA quality to an anime, the animation to me was actually kind of cool in and of itself, and so it didn't detract. It was pretty interesting. So I give it a meh, but a good meh.
I have to watch the rest of it. I only saw the first episode, so I'll see. I'll know how I feel about it once I've gotten through the whole thing.
Yeah,
it's got potential. It was really strong. I like the action sequences were well done. The stakes were kind of explained. The banter between the characters was pretty sharp.
I like the contemporary backdrop too.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Thought that was pretty cool. All right. Well, everyone else on our feed, please chime in because we don't know what we're talking about, or at least I don't. Hassan can hold up some sort of like credit when it comes to anime. I cannot, but we'd like to hear what you think.
Not with Ghost in the Shell, though. I mean, like it. Not in this particular case, but I just can't. From that one episode, I couldn't tell you because I'm both intrigued.
Yeah.
And then I could never go back again.
Yeah.
Like it's not one of those things. It doesn't demand my attention, but it didn't distract me.
Right.
It didn't deter me from wanting to see more. So, and then I could get to either one of those, either one of those visceral reactions the more I watch. So who knows?
Yeah. No. Well, chime in. Let us know. Give us some information. That's what we always like to hear from our fans. All right. When we come back, we'll go spinning the racks. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, talking comics, movies, TV, and pop culture. We are big fanboys of comics and graphic novels, and every week we like to bring you the inside info on the source material that will make its way onto the large and small screen. We call this segment Spinning the Racks.
Spin the rack, spin that rack.
Boom Studios inks Netflix deal. The comic book publisher Boom Studios gets a first look TV deal under the terms of the pact. Boom, the company behind Eisner Award-winning franchises including Lumberjanes, Something is Killing the Children, Once and Future, and Mouse Guard, will produce live-action and animated series based on its library of titles. This gives Netflix access to what sources describe as one of the largest libraries of controlled comic book IP outside of Marvel and DC. Philip Sablick was who's the publisher at Boom, was actually my Diamond rep at Diamond when Sire first was released in 2006 through Diamond. So always happy to hear good news. This is kind of I feel like where all this TV boom is really helping comic book companies, because once you can attach yourself to a streaming service, I mean, you're essentially getting funding. I would imagine you're getting funded by just creating new properties, and comics is one of the least expensive, most innovative way to put an idea on paper and see where it can go versus having
concept.
Yeah. So this is actually good news in an otherwise bleak time in the comic book world. I will say this: been catching up on my comics. Wolverine. The new Wolverine-ish series that came out through Marvel before I think number 2 is the last one that came out before they stopped publication. Adam Kubert, man, he's still got it. Like, he has still got it, and he's drawing Wolverine again for the first time in a long time. And the writing was fantastic. Like the X-Men books, since the Hickman kind of restart that took place, has been firing on many a cylinder right now. Like many a cylinder.
It's almost like they're paying attention to the franchise again.
Oh, absolutely. It's so. We've said this before on this podcast. The generation that is like lauding Avengers Endgame and all these Avengers movies cannot possibly conceive a time when the Avengers were the lamest characters in the Marvel universe. They were the absolute bottom of the New Warriors were more popular than the Avengers, right?
Yeah.
Like, could you name me some more Marvel titles?
Nothing was higher at the time than the Uncanny X-Men.
Yeah.
They did 2 satellite books. They eventually had X Factor, and they had the New Mutants.
Right.
Which kind of helped, it helped buoy the Uncanny X-Men, but the Uncanny X-Men was the pinnacle of of superhero team storytelling. Bigger than the Justice League, bigger than the Avengers, bigger than just about everything.
Yeah.
At a time. And it was such a staple of comic books that when it ended so benignly that a lot of people didn't realize, wait a minute, the X-Men are lame now? It was so gradual when they kind of fell off the top.
Yeah.
And that was prior to the Avengers movies. It was prior to the cinematic explosion that became the Avengers. But only just. It was a couple of years prior to that. Maybe 5 or 6 years prior to that, when suddenly it started to become redundant. There were so many X books and whatever.
Well, I do remember in 2005, I think it started with Avengers Disassembled, where Marvel was like, let's try to give the Avengers the X-Men treatment. David Finch, Brian Michael Bendis. Putting like top quality creators on the books. But I didn't look at it back then because remember, 2005. You're at X-Men Last Stand. Is that's right around that time. But I didn't think they were cutting off their hand to spite their face then until, Iron Man kind of came out and, did
Do you still
amazing.
read X-Men?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm reading X-Men.
I mean,
Francis
until
Yu.
now. Until before now.
Cullen Bunn
before the new
had a run
iteration.
on X-Men. Cullen Bunn had a run on X-Men before Hickman's run that was as close to previous iterations of X-Men that I had enjoyed. I broke out Grant Morrison's run. I'm going to be rereading that pretty soon. The Joss Whedon, John Cassaday run, which was like the 04. See again, 04 they were still firing on all cylinders on the X-Men front. The X-Men front wasn't, they were still giving it the love. They didn't stop giving it the love until Iron Man hit, and then they basically were
I can tell you exactly when I stopped reading X-Men.
When did you exactly
I
stop
can tell
reading?
you the exact moment I stopped reading. When Angel grew his wings back. When Warren Worthington actually grew his feather wings out of the wings that he had been given by Apocalypse when Apocalypse made him into Death, one of the Four Horsemen.
Yeah,
which was a fantastic storyline done by Louise Simonson.
I'm just trying to think, when did he regrow them? I don't remember.
I don't know,
the year.
Somewhere in the middle aughts, and it was like he was still blue. And he got his fluffy wings back because they just grew out of his back. Like you wouldn't be able to know you were growing wings out of your back into your prosthetic wings. It was just, and they just sprouted out. And he was like, "Oh, my wings," and it was like, okay, they don't know what they're doing anymore. They have no idea. They've got nothing else. That someone says, "Oh, you want to do something different? I'm going to give Angel his wings back." How did that boost the character? Now, from our era as kids, Angel always had a rivalry with Wolverine, mostly over Jean Grey. Well,
really?
Angel was
Scott Summers.
Are you gonna listen? Do you ever listen?
Go ahead.
Angel was very loyal to Scott, and he did not appreciate Wolverine's advances on Jean Grey. So they always Warren Scott was always a little too subdued to get into it with Wolverine directly. So Angel was always the hothead who would go after, and it was just like the only thing that kept him alive is that he could fly. He could get away from Wolverine's his claws. Only thing and they just kept going at each other one after the other, and it was always considered not even a cage match. Like it's not even a contest between the two of them. So it was always Warren like pushing his luck with the Wolverine. And then Warren died. Suppose he lost his wings during Fall of the Mutants. The Marauders pinned his wings to the wall. I think it was Harpoon pinned his wings to the wall. His wings died. They tried to heal his wings. They ended up having to amputate his wings. He got really depressed about it because he didn't have his wings anymore. He took off in the plane. He blew himself up in the plane supposedly, and that's how Angel supposedly died. And then a couple of months later, we had I think it was in the Fall of the Mutants. So I don't think he lost. I think he lost his wings in the Mutant Massacre. They came back in Fall of the Mutants. And Apocalypse had remade him and given him these, they altered him surgically, changed his skin color, they gave him these prosthetic wings that were just amazing. They were the equivalent of how in Spider-Man 2, the movie,
I think you're actually griping about a storyline that Fabian Nicieza penned, by the way. The Scott Lobdell, Fabian Nicieza thing. Because I'm looking here, and it says Uncanny X-Men 338. 294 was the extinction.
He came back in X Factor, though.
No. It says Uncanny X-Men 338. Reclaiming his original angel powers, Warren still retains his blue skin color.
Yeah, but I'm recanting how he lost his wings in the first place. I'm talking about
right. Yes, sorry,
okay,
I was jumping ahead.
Yeah, okay, never mind.
Jumping ahead.
But anyway, I think when they gave him his wings back, I didn't like it anymore. So,
yeah, no, I'm still a fan, and I got to tell you that the reboot they've done has been very successful. One last note before we get going, too: Kickstarters are just blowing up right now. So the question of whether or not people still want comics, I think, is quietly being answered in the indie market. Friend of the show, Tom Hutchinson, his Kickstarter is just exceeding leaps and bounds. James Massey, a friend of the show, he had a Kickstarter recently for a coffee table book, and he says it was his best Kickstarter ever. So a lot of folks were wondering out there, a lot of creators are saying, what do I do now that books aren't shipping? And a lot of these people want to be friendly to retailers as well, too. They offer retailer incentives on their Kickstarter and things like that, where they can get it in the hands of retailers if they can reopen, things like that. So the comic book creativity is off and running. Mike Mart's Aftershock Comics, they're still producing new material. To go full circle with AMC refusing Universal, though, it'll be interesting to see post-pandemic how many people now flock to Kickstarter, flock to Comixology versus the retailers when they reopen. It'll be interesting to see. We obviously don't have any data yet, but hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
We'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. It could be a game changer. It could go back to status quo.
Yeah. Hey, if you've got a Kickstarter out there, email sire@mikebooks.com, SIRE@MIKEbooks.com. And we'll try to do some features on this Spin the Rack segment in the next couple of weeks. If you got something going on that looks of interest, we will drop a line or two, and we really appreciate it. All right, next week, Revenge of the Sixth. We are going to review all 3 of the sequels in succession at once, as a whole, not as individual movies. This should be incredibly painful. I mean, fun! It's going to be fun. We'll see you all next week. Rogue Wave.